Hello, can you hear me? Yeah, can you hear me? Yeah, good. All right. Okay. Hi, everyone. It's a great class here, seeing everyone virtually. Of course, normally I like to interact with people directly on stage or in person, but just the way it is, cannot help it. But I'm still very thankful for Vivian and Marina to putting that together, and I really enjoy talking to people with similar aspirations. Creating a company, working, becoming an entrepreneur, and sharing my experience. So today I'm going to speak about I have two sections prepared. And the first section is all about my personal journey, becoming an entrepreneur, why, and what drives what drives me at the end of the day. In the second section, I'm going to talk about a very concrete use case, which is actually live, which is Upland. It is a company which is we have now a little bit more than 2 years old, which we launched earlier this year, and it's going to be very exciting. For those of you, because at the end of the session, I'm going to share actually a special link, but I assume some of you might not be able to join until the end of the session. So if you want to sign up for Upland, I just posted here in the chat. That's a special link where you can get a higher sign-up bonus when you want to sign up either with mobile or with on the web. So that's just for you, for those who cannot stay until the end. Okay, I will start going through those two sections. I will pause in between, to wait for questions and whatever you have. All right, so let me start here. Just to make sure technology is working. Where do I see now? Oops. I've got to move my windows here. 1 second. Technology. Okay. Okay, can you see my my deck?
No.
Oh, oops.
No, yeah, we did well during testing earlier.
No, I did. My bad. I have to press share screen, right? Okay, now you can see it, I guess, right?
Yes, yes.
Yes.
Okay, technology. All right, so let's get started. So, yeah, quickly, just about me. I'm a little bit older, so I've been in the media and tech space since 20 years. I've been especially fascinated by the whole idea about blockchain, which I want to talk about a little bit later today, since 8 years. So I joined it very early, and I moved from Germany to Silicon Valley 10 years ago, completely on my own risk. I did not know anybody. Actually, I have 2 kids. I brought them with me, my wife. Because we said, okay, Silicon Valley is the place to be to start really a company. Because I had started 2 companies before in Germany. One is, you probably know the brand, it's the Financial Times. There was a German Financial Times, not the British one, but the German Financial Times, which was obviously founded later. So I started that one. Then I started another company in the fintech space in Germany, which I sold to what is today Fidelity Investments. So these were the 2. For both companies, I raised a substantial multi-million dollars of funding, either from strategic investors, and I'm going to explain a little bit later, the difference, how to pitch to those, and of course also from venture capitalists and also from angels. Then I arrived actually back in 2009 in here in the US, and I started 2 other companies, which I also sold. And I have to admit, those were not big exits. This is also kind of normal life of an entrepreneur. And when you're in Silicon Valley, you always dream of big exits, but I don't think it's always needed, as long as you do what you really like doing. And I'm also a mentor for European, especially European, let's say international. Also done some stuff for South America, accelerators. So I've helped over 30 accelerators in Silicon Valley since 2012 to fund, to raise funding or to enter the US market. It always depends. There was, small companies with 5 people, but I also mentored a company which had over 400 people. So all different things. And sometimes I was actually working a little bit more. For one company, I have helped actually getting sold even. So that was also, where I went really deep into one company. Personally, I'm a big swimmer. I love swimming, and this is me in Lake Tahoe on the right. So actually, I'm swimming 3 or 4 times a week just to get some exercise and stay fresh. So that's why I always recommend to don't sit always, especially these days, in front of your computer and the screen and get squared eyes. Really, really move your body to get inspiration outside. Because I think it's so important. What we should never forget is we all live with all the devices always in our hands, but we have always to remember when you want to become an entrepreneur, you're not becoming an entrepreneur because you're reading what others are doing or reading about market research. Actually, you're getting your best ideas is when you're under the shower, when you take a walk at the beach, when your mind goes wandering, and that's actually where the big ideas are born now. That's actually also one part of where Upland was born, not really looking at a YouTube video or something. Next step. So some quickly German heritage, but which is actually true for actually in general for innovation and for startups. And there was a philosopher called Schopenhauer in Germany, and he called what is called the truth hype cycle. And that is exactly what you have to go through as an innovator, especially as an entrepreneur. So you have an idea. And then the first phase is everybody laughs at you. The idea is really, really cool. They're stupid, how can you think about that? So funny, right? I remember very well the times when Twitter was launched, right? Everyone said, oh, great, now I can tweet, that I'm going to the restroom or what, right? And that was a typical sentence. I remember that. And this has changed. Of course, we know, that even presidents are using that as a tool today. So, but, people are laughing about things. And then, but then you start to get some traction. People will start feeling, a little bit strange about it, maybe even threatened. And then they start to posing it, right? The typical reaction is, oh, you know what, this has never been done here. You cannot do this. No, this is against our rules or something, right? And then that's interesting, the third phase, right? When you're getting success, everybody says, oh, I had a similar idea, I always said it's going to work, and so on. So I've seen it in all my 5 startups. I've been going through that all the time, each time. It's a funny thing. So don't get anyhow, if you start a company, always think about those 3 steps, so you will eventually get there, right? Just be persistent and then follow your dreams. Yeah. So, and coming back to the German heritage, the Germans are very, they're very, let's say, the engineers developing all those cars, they're very, let's say, driven from their head, but they always find something where they say, oh, it's a great idea, but they always find, that's a but, and that's also when you go and move, especially outside of Silicon Valley, people always know why something is not working, right? You're presenting an idea and they say, yeah, but this has never worked. Or they have an example where, where it was similar and said, oh, you're too late or whatever. So there's always a big but, right? And that's also what drove me when I made the decision to move from Germany to the US, this attitude, this bad but attitude, I want to escape that because I knew that Silicon Valley is more open to new things. And I thought it also has to do with age, right? And Germany, for instance, has a problem with age. And unfortunately, the US is heading the same direction, right? That the under 30 years old, right, getting less than the older than 60 years old, right? Now you could say, hey, innovation only happens with young people. But actually, this is not true. And that's also something that's a myth. I believed in that myth myself, like 10, 12 years ago, right? I said only young people can innovate, but I don't think that's true. I think anyone can really innovate, right? And it's independent from age. Yeah. So that also from the attitude when you're here in the Silicon Valley, right? When you're in Germany or when you're east of the Silicon Valley, people, especially when you talk to managers, right, and they see a threat coming up, when you, let's say, an automobile or car manufacturer is, well, I don't care about Tesla. We're well prepared. We can start with electric cars tomorrow, right? That's a typical attitude. While the attitude in the Silicon Valley is really, hey, I can always be disrupted by someone. Something can happen, right? I know that, and I always have to see how can I avoid that this is going to happen. Yeah. So the big attitude is here. What I really love about Silicon Valley is, to say yes and, right. And that's the, you have to, when you start a company, to find people around you, right, who have that attitude as well. Hey, that's a great idea. Do you know you can also do this or that with it? Or those are the people you have to circle around you, to drive you, to give you the energy to move forward. So when I then moved to the Silicon Valley, I thought, Silicon Valley, there's so much money here, right? And again, I raised, a couple $10 million worth of euros back in Germany when I was there. I thought, I go to the VC in the US. I'm self-confident. I started 2 companies, were successful, right? And I said, there's this tree, full of the VCs. I shake it, and then all the VCs fall out, and they're just going to give me money. To my surprise, this was actually not the case. Because I had actually in 2009 to start really basically from zero again. Financial Times, yes, was a brand. People had heard about it, right? That's okay, right? But the other company was just a European company, just quotation marks. People never heard about it, right? So it's something you always have to really start and be ready to start on the bottom. Even if you were successful, maybe some of you have done successful things before, but now you're changing career, you're doing something else. You always have to be aware that you start always from the bottom up again, right? So that's important to know. And that's also what I learned, that the Silicon Valley is really a mindset, and it's not a location at the end of the day. It's kind of a location when I said when we're moving here, right? But it's deeper than this. It goes deeper than this, right? But I also liked about Silicon Valley is this typical sentence, I worry about that later. That's what I always seen, especially with startups from the East Coast or from Europe, right? They always try to comply with everything and they think everything through, but this actually hinders you sometimes. Sometimes you, as an entrepreneur, you really have to have the attitude sometimes, hey, okay, I get it done somehow later. I know there's something not thought through, but just go and move on and do the thing what I think is right. So any questions so far before I come to the next mini section in my talk here? Can I see the question?
Doctor, real quick, with your first slide, when it says stage 1 is like ridicule, stage 2 is opposition, I personally faced that last year with my startup, and I was wondering if you had any kind of advice on how you ignore people that are opposing what you're doing or ridiculing, because I feel like over the last year I've spent more time defending what I'm doing versus doing what I'm doing, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I see exactly where you're coming from. And again, as I mentioned, I've been there many times. First of all, you should not get irritated, right? I mean, sometimes it's good to take advice and to learn and to improve from there. But especially, so you have to divide it up. When you speak to people who have never started a company and they ridicule it or they're opposing it, to be honest, I would not take their advice too serious because they have never been there. They don't understand it. I would take the more, strong advice from someone who has been there, like another entrepreneur who has done something similar. So that's the first thing, as a guideline. And then, but if you still, of course, very often you have, people who are very close to you, your parents, your sister, brother, whoever, right, or best friends who are opposing it. And then it's harder, right? Because they say, oh, it never works. But I would then use this kind of, let's say, approach saying, hey, if you would be my shoes, what would you do? Try to get them on board. And very often what I have seen is, when they start thinking about it, they get less opposed and actually come up sometimes with good ideas.
Really
right?
Thank you. That's a really good point.
Just real quick. We have learned that location is central to any business. So if it's only a mindset, how can everybody want to come to Silicon Valley? And it makes a huge difference. So how can you convince investors, people, that actually just a mindset instead of a location?
So coming to the location. So first of all, locations are very important also in other industries. So if you go to Paris, that's where the fashion industry is. So if you go to London or New York, it's where the finance industry is. So location was always important, the same for Silicon Valley. The reason is because why Silicon Valley, you probably all heard of why Silicon Valley is so successful, because they said, okay, they have this open mindset with Berkeley, flower power, right, where people were more open to ideas. You have Stanford. Right next to Stanford, we have Central Road with all the VCs. So everything is somehow concentrated here in Silicon Valley. and attracted people with a similar mindset. So this was a natural thing. It's the same thing when people are in Paris, when you're in the fashion industry, right?
Okay.
However, what I have to say right now clearly, what I'm observing, what I've observed the last 3 years, but also especially now during the pandemic times, I think, especially when it comes to Silicon Valley, because everything is digital, it's becoming less and less important to do that. So my current company, we are completely distributed, even though the 3 founders are based in the Valley and we have two more people here. But our development team is in Ukraine. And what I'm doing right now, I could not have done if I would have started the company completely in Silicon Valley. Yeah. So I think even the investors, VCs, are becoming more open to distributed teams. However, I believe it's for the VCs, it's still important that they have to the founders the direct connection. So because if you as the founder are a completely different time zone, and it's hard to speak to you because everyone is asleep and the other is awake, then it's still tricky. However, I wouldn't exclude that. I spoke to a lot of VCs, and I've seen also that a lot of deals are getting done outside of Silicon Valley, which is actually great news for the rest of the world.
Right. Thank you.
All right. Good. More questions, and I continue. Okay, so now I want to start preparing you in, how did I come up with the idea together with my co-founders for Upland, but then you have to understand how disruption is working and what things are changing. And basically going very much what is happening and how I personally see the future. So I see that in the past, we had different types of revolutions. So the first revolution was basically the agricultural revolution, where people start having plows, were much more efficient, to do the harvesting. The next one was then the industrial revolution. Of course, this was the concept of, economies of scale, right? Where people could produce much more, much cheaper if they have standardized working as such. Then afterwards we had the industrial information revolution, right, which started basically in the 70s or so, right? It accelerated, especially in the 90s, with the internet, with the approach of the internet, right? And now the next revolution, what I see, is the ownership revolution, because what you had with the information revolution is basically that you could transfer information basically for free. That was the problem, as I started a newspaper once, the problem for people who usually charged for information. And all of a sudden, everyone can become a blogger or a YouTuber and create content which is maybe more liked by people and not by the ones who think, top down how to create a TV channel or to create a newspaper. So this is because the main reason was because the marginal cost to transfer information really went to zero. Now I believe the next revolution, what we're going to see is always driven by technology, is called the ownership revolution. And without going too deep into everything, but this is driven by blockchain. And the idea is that blockchain allows you to transfer anything of value. And what that means is because in the early days of the internet, or what we currently say in the internet, is it's very hard for me to give you something which only you own at that moment. But with blockchain, and I don't know how much you guys are into it, but with blockchain, I'm able to give you a Bitcoin, for instance, right? And then right now also I am able to give you a piece of art, and I can prove that you are the owner of that piece of art by using the blockchain. And this opens up completely new types of business models we are going to see. Exactly the same idea when the information revolution, or let's say which was part of it, social media revolution, enabled people to communicate very efficiently and fast. Now I can actually transfer anything of value. And this is where I think there's a lot of potential in there. But what you have to be aware of is of all the hype, especially when you want to go and raise money. When you talk just lingo, like blockchain, and just throw around buzzwords. If you have a sophisticated investor, he will always say, this is too much hot air what you're producing here, right? It does not really, there's no really, fundamental, change or fundamental approach behind it, right? So I would just want to say, don't come up with a new business idea saying, hey, we are based on AI on a blockchain, we do, the latest supply chain technology, right? It says nothing, right? You always have to be much more concrete than this. Okay, so before I start talking about Upland, questions regarding, let's say, a little bit more entrepreneurship, or to in the context also of raising capital. I mean, I'm going to go through that also in my presentation, but is there any other questions?
Hi, I'm Caitlin. I have a question. Where would you encourage starting for somebody who would like to get into raising capital? I'm a small business owner currently. I offer the services of personal training and science tutoring. However, I've never had to really do a round of seed funding, I guess, from friends and family. And I'm not sure where to start with that. So what would you advise?
Yeah. So first of all, it always depends on your business, right? What you want to do and how much you want to raise. But just from the way it normally works when you start a company is when you need a little bit money. First of all, you as the founder, you have to also always think, okay, can I live without a salary or with minimal salary for the next 1 or 2 years, right? That's also always important, right? That you say, oh, I'm quitting my job and, I'm just become an entrepreneur and have the same income, right? I mean, this is just not going to happen, right? Because if I invest in companies, you always want to see that the founder has some skin in the game as well. Yeah, so that's important. So the first typical round you do is actually you go and raise money from friends and family. However, I would be very careful because I've seen many tragic things happen, right? That you raised maybe money from your mother and who gave you a 401k, right? Or whatever, because she loves you. But then, the money was gone. So I would never, and that's very important, raise money from friends and family, from people who or pretty much know that they cannot afford it. They just do it for doing you a favor. You can go to your rich uncle, right, who has maybe 4 or 5 cars, and if he loses 1 car, he doesn't care, right? Yeah, that's fine. Okay, that's you can do, right? But don't stress your personal relationships. That's not worth it, right? That's my very personal advice. Yeah, but that's normally, but when you find this rich uncle or friends or whatever, right? Or maybe sometimes a friend knows a friend who is an angel investor or something that's, who gives here and there $20,000 or $30,000 or whatever the amount is, right? That's what you can do. And typically, again, it depends on your business, right? Are you starting a tech business or what kind of business do you want to start? Maybe just to give me.
I'm currently a sole proprietor of a limited liability corporation, and I offer personal training and science tutoring services.
Tutoring services, okay. Okay, do you want to add technology to it or is it more a service company?
More a service company. I have plans to branch into maybe selling a product in a few years. However, right now, I'm currently building community, so gathering students who want to learn more about the physical therapy profession, as that's where I'm going into, and kind of just guiding a community along that path is where I'm at right now. I'm not necessarily sure of expansion yet, but I have a few ideas. I'm not at a point where I necessarily need to raise money. However, just getting that idea started would be ideal.
Okay, understood. Yeah, so since it's a service business, service has the charm, right, that it's not that capital intensive, because usually when you provide the service, you usually make money quickly, right, because you can charge your clients, right? I mean, maybe the first clients you do it for free, so your first people are coming in, but otherwise, so this is actually a nice business. So when you go out to then your friends and family investors, that's any investors, that's what you should also not forget, what entrepreneurs always do wrong, right? They're so excited about their idea, and then, you know, they pitch the idea to someone who could potentially give money. But if you have always to put you in the shoes of an investor wants, he invests in you. I'm taking out your mother or whatever who would just do you good, right? But whoever gives you money, it's an investor. An investor wants to know, okay, is it a safe investment, right? Is it not 100% sure I'm losing the money? And what is my return, right? They have to see that. And never forget that independent which stage you're raising is that you show, okay, you know, I'm raising, let's say in your business, you know, I don't have the details, but I assume you could probably live with $50,000 or something, maybe más o menos, to get a studio or whatever, and then maybe, you know, some equipment, right? So, but tell them, hey, you're giving me now 50,000. Here's my plan. Here's my financial plan, right? I'm planning to do, you know, revenues, let's say 70,000 a year. Of that, you know, I can probably get 20,000 back to you per year. So, you know, you have your money back after 2.5 years, and because you gave me the money, I give you something on top, right? But it has to be clear to the investor, right? First of all, that they don't get the money back in 3 months. It always takes 2, 3, 5 years, right? Yeah, that's one thing. And then I was showing a path how they're going to eventually make money out of that, right? That's very important. Yeah. Okay, so that's the first step. So you have those friends and family. Then the next step is then usually when with friends and family, you're trying to build. And it depends again on the business. So in your case, I assume you could probably live with just friends and family if you're able to raise, I don't know, 50K, right? But let's say if you want to build maybe a more, let's say, I'm just making up now. Let's say you want to build some kind of a franchise concept, right? You want to have maybe like 2 or 3, you know, studios in San Francisco or wherever, right?
Right.
So then you need probably more capital. That means you need now to go to angel investors. All right, and here in the Silicon Valley, usually angel investors, they give more money, but could be as little as 20,000. I would not bother with less money because you always have to think when people give you less money, that's my experience, the harder it is to deal with them because they are really looking after every cent. They want reporting all the time. They question you what you do. And really, they you know, they hinder you to do your business actually, right? But I might be wrong, but just my advice, below 10,000, I would not necessarily take money from someone, yeah, because then it also feels that these people need this money, right? But if someone can give you easily 20,000, then so you're trying to get to those angel investors, people who, you know, do maybe, I don't know, you know, maybe 1 or 2 investments per year. Maybe some people go 10 investments. Of course, when you find someone really, you know, rich, they do even more, yeah. But that's where you can get to maybe, you know, in your case, let's assume, you know, you need for the first phase 50,000, maybe for the second phase, you know, each studio building up, you have 4 studios, probably 200,000 or so, right? That's the next step, right? So you're trying to raise money from 6, 7 angel investors or less, yeah. So roughly.
Have you ever owned a franchise? Have you ever owned a franchise?
Did I? I did not know.
I'm interested in likely franchising a coffee shop or a gym sometime within the next 10 years about, if all goes to plan. So it's really cool that you brought that up. Thank you so much for answering my question.
All right, you're welcome, yeah. Okay, so yeah, but that's the idea about franchise. And then just to finish that is, you know, after the angel investors, you have the seed investors. These can be sometimes, the big difference is the friends and family angel investors, they invest their own money. And then you're getting to seed investors. Sometimes they're still angel investors, or those seed investors are institutional or funds. Those are people who are investing others' people's money. That's the first time you're getting something in, and that's where you also do some kind of a let's say a priced round. Then you have to have more traction. You have to have bigger numbers and all these kind of things. And then eventually after the seed, you go to Series A. That's when you pitch to VCs. You do Series B, Series C, and then later on you have, you know, private equity investors, but that's really later on. That's when you raise more than 50 or $100 million in order to build out a business of $500 million. So that's different, right? But in your case, I think you can probably go up to seed investors and build, you know, a good business out of that. Yeah, yeah. But it's also important to show to investors not, you know, how you're paying back the money. You have to show what kind of market you have. You have to show them how you differentiate from others, right? Because if they just see, okay, you're one in 100, and you cannot show that you actually are able to attract an interesting market, then you probably get a no from many investors.
And when
And one thing is
involving
also,
other, oh, I'm sorry. When involving other people's money, that also requires contracts as well, right?
yeah, but you can download all those contracts. It depends how you do it. You can do it what is called a SAFE. I don't want to go too much into the technical and legal details here. Okay. But if you Google, there's a lot of open source document out there. You get this very standardized document which you can use and then sign together.
Oh, I didn't know that. Thank you.
Yeah, it's called SAFE, SAFE, or convertible notes. That's you use this instrument before you want to, let's say, value a company. When I mean valuing a company or doing a priced round, that's when you say, okay, I say, my company is $1 million worth. You're giving me 200,000, so you have 20%. Yeah, post money. When you do a SAFE or convertible note, that's actually where you don't value your company and you only convert that at a later stage when you do a priced round. Yeah, so there's a little bit of technique here. Yeah. Okay. Good. More questions to funding or one thing is I want to also let everyone know, you have to get used to getting a no. So go in every meeting, not to demotivate you, but you have to assume that the person you're pitching to is going to give you a no. I have pitched in my life 600 times, maybe 700 times. I don't know. I've not really counted it. And most of the time I did get a no. And this has actually, of course, sometimes to do with your idea, with your market. Maybe the person doesn't like you, right? But in many cases, you have also to know that when investors, they're either not from your space, or they just don't have money to invest right now, or they have invested maybe even a competitor. But very often it's not really just because of your idea, right? And so this is very important, where you should not get demotivated that you get a lot of no's. It's just the way it is. That is startup life. But once you get a yes, it's the better the feeling.
Dr. Lueth, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Can you hear it? Okay. On that same topic of getting no's, I contacted a biophysics company, and it was referred to me by some doctors to help me with my research questions for my invention. And I gave them a hypothetical situation, and the response I got was, we can't answer that question for you. It wasn't really quite, we can't answer that question for you. It's like, no one's here to answer that question for you, or something like that. It was almost like they were dismissing my hypothetical, not even giving me a chance to do it. But it was like, no one here is able to answer that question. But it wasn't that they couldn't, but it was more like they didn't want to spend time talking to me. So how do you handle that when you're trying to get information, not necessarily prying into another person's, I want to say, intellectual property, but you're just trying to get answer to a hypothetical question, and then you're being turned down from getting that help? How do you handle that?
Yeah, so two things. First of all, of course, I don't know your exact case, but two advice I can give here. So first of all, when you are in that meeting, people say there's no one answering your question. You could always ask, is there anyone in the organization who can? Right?
Right.
Or is it, and then, or can you explain me a little bit more detail, right? That's you should always not be afraid of getting a follow-up question, and always maybe start with saying, oh, can you maybe help me then find someone? But nobody's ever going to reject you because when you're asking for help, right? So that's when you are in the meeting. But I think what is more important is when you go into a meeting, you get referred to someone. I would do research about that person or the people you're going to meet. The reason I'm saying that is because you need to know what drives them. And even though sometimes your idea might not be 100% what they're doing, but I would always give it a small twist. So they are doing some research in some area, right? And then I would maybe start my pitch with something which somehow relates to what they're doing, because then you get much more from their attention, and then they start thinking. Because what you always have to assume, no one is waiting really for your idea, right? Everyone is always busy with something else. And you have to, you always get better welcome, or, you receive better when you actually think like the one you're meeting. Does it make sense?
Yeah, and I have done what you suggested. I did follow up and say, well, can you explain why? Is it because you've never dealt with a situation that I proposed to you? And if you could you refer me to somebody who could help me in answering that question? So I'm waiting to hear back from them. I've even made phone calls, and of course they're not answering my phone calls. So yeah.
But then you can assume, I think you have to move on, right? It's actually, very often I did also myself, I did get an answer, hey, it's a very interesting idea, we will get back to you, right? For me, it's also a little cultural thing, right? In Germany, someone would tell me that, I know he would contact me again. Over here, it means polite, no, I'm not interested.
Yeah,
so,
yeah. And by the way, what is your doctorate in?
In economics.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, all right.
Professor,
okay.
Dr. Lueth, I do have one other question. Like, I might not have been here in the beginning, so I might have missed something. But like, I'm wondering at what point of the project, like, obviously we'll be starting on it, and once we have like a prototype, I'm assuming then we like sort of present it to like the investors or something. But like, I'm wondering at when exactly is that point, because I'm working on an app right now with a couple of my friends, but like we're not sure when exactly. Should we just wait until like we finish the app completely and then do something, or how would it work?
No, look, when I'm looking at investments or pitching somewhere, what you're interested in as an investor is that app going to be used by actual people? What are your insights? So it does not really matter that your app is not complete, right? When you build an app, you could also have, just some dummy fields where people click and then maybe they find a short screen saying, feature is coming soon or something. But at least you know that they have clicked on that feature, and you know that there's a need for that particular thing. Because when you come to those insights, you can say, I tested the app with 200 people, and out of those 200, 180 were looking exactly for that kind of feature, right? So this is, why I want to build out the app now with that feature, and that's the reason why I'm raising the money. But you have to always iterate, test, because otherwise you're building something maybe which is not needed or wanted by the market, and then you spend a lot of time and money on the wrong things.
Right. So, but I'm guessing we should have at least something, if not nothing, right? Because I do have some other ideas, but they would require like money I obviously do not have on me right now. So I was just wondering, like, when should I like actually take my idea forward to other people, or like at what point? Because there's still
I think the most important thing is, you're going to early stage investors because you need their money to build out what you want to do. I think if you have market research data that what you're doing is actually something people want, right? That already gives you half a way there. The other half way is that you show that you actually can build it also, that you have maybe a short prototype which is not fully functional, but you know how to build an app. But this combination, right, will hopefully convince the investors, okay, there's a market, he identified a need, I trust him, he can build it, so I give him some money to go to the next level.
I see. Thank you so much.
All right. Okay, more questions before I jump to Upland?
Hi, I have one quick question.
Yeah.
I just want to let you know that I just opened a company this week. It's funny name because of the pandemic, but it's called Chef Tours International Inc. And I have a citizen, I've got dual citizenship from Italy and Canada. So my plan is to go abroad and do this business. And also I'm thinking of opening up either a beach club in Spain or a boutique hotel. Also with the Chef Tours International, I already researched Spain and Canada. They have a treaty agreement where you can have you can have business in Canada and in Spain. So the projection is probably the next 5 to 6 years, maybe 7 years, depending on what's happening with the pandemic. Because I know that obviously it's going to pass and people will travel. They always have. So my question to you is, when do you think is a good time to actually contact investors? I do have some savings, so I would tell them that I would also invest my own funds as well. So it wouldn't just be investment money from other people's money. I would also contribute as well. So that's basically my question.
So two things is, first of all, what I could advise is really to go and focus on one thing, right? So doing something in different countries or different types of businesses will defocus you completely. I would really start with one thing in the beginning. I'm not sure if I understand are you a cook or chef? Is that the idea? Or is that did not understand? Anyhow, I can. And then I would have actually the same answer like what you had before. What I had before is show the first traction, right? Show that someone actually comes to your place and is willing to open up his or her wallet in order to spend on your product or service you're going to deliver. Because this is always the proof every investor wants to see, right? Is there actually some market for it or not? That's the most important thing. And then I would start going out. So that's actually, I don't know how much money you have on the side for yourself, but I, would not, of course, use all the savings, or especially, retirement savings and so on. But if you can afford it a little bit, then I would start doing that, have some traction, and then start going out to I think angel investors probably then the next level. You could maybe raise some money from this friends and family before, but again, not only from the rich uncle. Okay.
I do have a question also. Dirk, what are the investors are investing in right now? Like, where is it going at this time, in your opinion? Where are they investing?
So it's a good question. Of course, there's a lot of market. Sorry, I didn't catch that. Did you say something else?
Yeah, I just said I got cut off. But I do recall you saying about too much at once. But if you have to continue, I really apologize.
Yeah. No, I think the only question what I've heard is what are investors investing right now? I mean, you have to know that investors always follow themes. They somehow a little bit like lemmings, following others.
Right.
Even if of course, in the let's say in Silicon Valley, people are a little bit more, less risk averse and do, more new things, but they're most of the time or almost all the time related to technology. If you're not in the technology space, I think it's a good time to actually raise capital. People say, oh, it's pandemic now and nobody has money, but that's just the consumers. In the investing space, you have to see that, and you see that also in the stock market. Stock market is going out to one record after the other, even though we have a pandemic. There's a lot of money out there, but what I'm currently a little bullish about is because there has been so much money distributed to people that there's a risk of inflation going forward. So when I'm an investor, right, I want to put my money somewhere where it does not get devalued, right? Because if I have my cash and put it on the bank, and let's say there's inflation, I'm going to lose it. Right, but if I put my money into business which hopefully flourishes, or multiple businesses, like portfolio strategy, then it could make sense, that people are more open to do some smaller investments here and there. Yeah, but this is just my macroeconomic view on things.
Excellent, thank you so much.
All right.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Hear me? I was wondering, the person who spoke about two people ago, didn't see the person's name. The person who's trying to develop the app, do you think if they went to seed investors with, for example, let's say a survey showing that they have some market validation before they have the full application developed, do you think that that data would be sufficient for investors to look at, well, there's potentially something there? For example, if that person were to post a survey in the chat and we all filled it out, or they sent it to their friends, is that enough data before the application is fully developed to show that there's interest in this product?
Again, depends always on the case. What I said earlier, also media reaction was because he says he wants, he uses data which he gathered, and he wants to build an app. So if that is your proposition, you probably have to show also that you are actually able to build an app. Because if you say, I have the data here and then I want to build an app, me as an investor, I don't know, does he have the, technology know-how to actually do that, right? So I need to have some proof point, even if you don't code yourself and you have maybe someone in a different country where it's lower cost than here in the Valley, right, to code something, and then you can show it, that you instructed that programmer in that other country correctly and that you were able to produce some output, that you should have. In this case, you should have it, right? When your ultimate goal is to build an app, you should show that you can actually do something like that.
So market validation, technical know-how.
Yeah.
Got it.
But it doesn't have to be the complete app. It's just, to hint at it in a certain way, right? And again, it depends on the stage you're raising.
Got it.
Can I ask a question as well, please?
Mm-hmm.
Hello. Thank you for being here. It's a really important topic, so I greatly appreciate the opportunity to ask about one of the ideas I have. It's a social-oriented project. We have, just to give a brief background, a mural at CCSF by Diego Rivera. It's promoting Pan-American unity. And we were thinking that there's a possibility to do a project where we will take the detailed image of the mural and project it on buildings across the cities in America, promoting unity between people and states and across the US. So what would you suggest, if you have any sort of insight into this, would be the best approach to raise some funding for such project?
So there's several ways. I mean, one way is you could always, let's go, but I've never done it, and not the right person to talk about it. But there's sites where you can go and so GoFundMe or places, right, where you can describe your project and people like the project and they invest in you. Another idea could be also, you have all those big corporations these days, and they always want to work on their, let's say, image. And when you transport, I don't know how political your message is or not, right? But if it's something which a large corporation, would like to associate itself with, right? That could be something, because you could say, okay, this is now sponsored. I'm just dropping a name here, Procter & Gamble or someone, right? Or something like that, right? And then, each image, then you say, hey, you want to do a tour where we project those images. And are you interested in sponsoring that? And for them, it's advertising, right? And at the same time, images. So there's creative ways of getting money, not necessarily just from investors, but very often also from potential partners. In your case, I think that could be a possible path.
Thank you so much.
All right. That's very important when you think about fundraising, don't think always about venture capitalists, rich angels, rich uncles, and so on. There's always so many different other ways. Maybe you get eligible for a government grant for whatever you do. Maybe you can go to GoFundMe. Maybe there's big corporations, right? Maybe there is non-profit organizations who are looking for, this kind of solution or so on. So you have to do your research. It's wide open. Yeah, so that's very important to know.
Or a scholarship if it's for a school or university.
Yeah, that's grant or scholarship, this direction, right? That's very often it also helps to apply for an accelerator program, right? There's many accelerator programs out there, and like me, I'm a mentor at the accelerators, and those people always either invest themselves or they know other people who invest. That's also something where you can accelerate. That's the name for it. Your business idea. Okay. Good. I'm looking at the time right now. Yeah, it's almost half time. So then now I'm going to go over. We can also have some more questions about entrepreneurship and fundraising maybe at the end. What I want to show you now is, I'm also always back into the hamster wheel, right? It's raising money again and again, right? So it's not just, but of course I've done this now multiple times. So, and I started Upland together with my two co-founders like 2 years ago. And maybe just give you a quick overview who they are. So, this Idan, who's originally from Israel, but also lives in the Valley for a long time, and Manny Honigstein, who's half Israeli, half German, who's here. So we put ourselves together. What was very important for us that we had, different skills, all of us, which is also, when you start a company, if you have exactly the same skills between 2 or 3 founders, that's not good, because then you have an overlap, and you need one person who's more technical, one more marketing, right? Or you start a company by your own. That's of course then that's a different story. But that's how we present ourselves, when we go out to investors. And I'm going to share those slides with you, also that you get an idea. I don't have all numbers in there for confidentiality reasons, but most of the stuff is in there, and I've added it to it. So what is important when you pitch to investors? You need to have some kind of a story. You cannot just go and it's you probably heard it, but it's the first 2 minutes are very important. Because nobody has time today these days, right? The attention span is very low. So it's very important that in the first 2 to 5 minutes, you really, make it interesting for potential investors to listen to want to find out more. The best way of doing that is when you have some kind of a story. The story we typically tell is that the 3 of us sat together, right? And that's true, right? We sat on a game night together. We were playing Monopoly, the board game. And there was the time when blockchain, and there was a phenomenon, CryptoKitties. Some of you might have heard of it, which was very huge. Where you could buy virtual cats on the blockchain. Was very, very, hyped. There was also the time I watched Stranger Things, the series on Netflix. I don't know if those of you have seen it, right? There's a parallel world. It's a little bit negative, the world, because of monsters. But that's how we came up, how we got inspired by Monopoly, this parallel world thing. And we said, okay, hey, shouldn't we, build some kind of a company using that technology? And so that's what we do. And I'm going to show a quick trailer. I hope, so if you have volume all the way up, maybe just because it's going to be with sound. It's a 1-minute trailer, and then I'm going to jump back into the presentation.
We want to rebuild the world! Rebuild it now! We want to rebuild the world! Rebuild it now! The journey of Upland begins with a crowd of cheering, dancing, and marching peaceful llamas. The llamas are celebrating a new world that is rebuilt by llamas for llamas. Introducing Upland, a parallel world that blends with the real one. Purchase virtual properties based on actual addresses and enjoy true ownership powered by blockchain technology. Join Miles B. Chain as he travels around the globe, buying, selling, trading property in San Francisco, New York City, Hong Kong, and more. Play Upland by becoming a proud landlord of your dream property, completing collections, finding treasure, and playing piñata. Earn in Upland, Upix currency for flipping properties, running your own business, and sell digital goods and properties for profit. Connect in Upland by forming and joining squads, meeting other players in cafes and other hangout places. Play, earn, and connect in Upland today. Available on the web, App Store, and Google Play.
Oops. Okay. All right. So this was a short trailer which we have also on our website. What we do, we say we were inspired by Monopoly. I guess all of you know what Monopoly is, the board game. But when we pitch it and to explain what we do is, especially when you're in the tech space, you always have to do something new, which is different, which has not been done before. And that's what we say, that Upland is a blockchain-based metaverse. A metaverse is like a parallel world. You can imagine that. But our metaverse that sits on top of the real world. So like we're based on real world addresses. You've seen that right now we're live for San Francisco and New York and Fresno. And we're based on 3 pillars, but we basically always say it's where people play games, they earn money, and connect with each other. And that's really, really a new way of thinking about games and then blockchain. It's not about just playing something. When we say earning money, that means also for us that we eventually clearly see that we have entrepreneurs in Upland making money they can use in real life. But I have some more words on that a little bit later. When you pitch to an investor, it's when I said we want to get his attention span. First of all, you have to have an attractive story in the beginning, and then you have to get him excited about about your numbers. So we launched early this year, and we already have a multi-million-dollar USD annual run rate. That means revenues we're doing already, so it's growing very nicely. We sold over 100,000 properties. So when I presented last year at the CCSF, I think was December or so. I think it was December timeframe. We sold 1,000 properties. So right now we sold way over 100,000 properties, and we are actually one of the top blockchain games. So when you look at current rankings, so this is your ranking called DAP Radar, and when you go here onto games, you actually see on the 24 hours, this is daily active users. We're right now the second largest, and when you go on 7, so weekly number of users, we actually the largest game already, even though we just launched. So we're quite happy about that. And this is very important when you want to convey to investors, hey, even though when you're not the first one, right, but get 1 or 2 KPIs or something, or key performance indicators out there, which makes them excited. Like, oh, that's super good, right? Or if you don't have that, then you should actually say, but we had this idea about this studio where someone wants to open. I'm the only one in that neighborhood who's going to open a studio who does exactly that, and there's a big market for it. Something along those lines, right? Just make them okay. Why is it so important? Why now? Why is this company? Why should I listen a little bit more to that pitch here? Yeah. So then the next thing is. And I'm a little bit, of course, biased now because I'm doing a tech startup. If you're doing a different type of startup, you might pitch a little bit differently. But I just want to give you an impression the way I pitch it right now to investors, right? We're saying a metaverse, right? It's taking our life over, right? It's very much like in Fortnite. We know the gaming industry is now larger than any other of the media and entertainment industries, like TV or movies. And we have, 2.5 billion people playing, spending, and that's also important to grab, right? A huge market, $150 billion in 2020. The thing is also that people are spending more and more times in games. So I see that with my kids, for instance, when they play, they're at the same time, there's a software called Discord, probably, where they can chat. They meet in a game and talk about school while they're playing. And this is actually risky for someone like Facebook or Google or something, because all of a sudden people are spending time elsewhere and not in Facebook anymore because they are now in the game, right? And now Facebook can sell less advertising space. So Facebook and others are watching that space very much. And people say also that games become the new kind of social networks going forward. Then, of course, you have to explain. You've seen all those pitch decks. Okay, what problem you solve? You could say now, hey, we're a game, you're just entertainment, right? But at the end of the day, it always comes back, are you solving a problem or do you help to solve some nuisance someone has somewhere, right? But most of the time you have to explain what's currently not working. That's always a good methodology doing that. We say traditional games, when you look at, Grand Theft Auto as an example here, or Minecraft or other games which are out there, usually all you get is entertainment value out of it, right? You're spending money in the game to purchase a skin or do something, right? But there's no way for you to get the money out, right? So people are reluctant. Well, sometimes say, oh, I put $10 in, then it's gone. Okay, I get entertainment value out of it, but maybe I could spend more if I have a chance to get the money back out. Blockchain applications, when I earlier said blockchain is the idea of transfer of value, but they give you now the possibility to transfer ownership and the possibility to extract value. But if you look at current blockchain applications, they're super complicated and to handle, right? And you have to deal with pass keys, wallets, and so on. So the average user cannot really do that. And that's where we said, okay, we want to change exactly to those two things. And this is then our solution, where we say that Upland is a metaverse that's easily to extract money and easy to use. And we put ourselves in that too. Also important for an investor to put you into some kind of category, because if you're too abstract, they don't know, right? You always have to give them some reference points. And that's what we're doing with this slide here now. We're saying we're targeting the mass market after Minecraft, right? We say, if you have kids or someone in the family who's very young, right? They usually play Roblox, who are just a huge IPO. I don't know if you heard that or about that. Then you have Minecraft, and we say we are for the older ones, so people are growing out of Minecraft eventually, right? So that is basically the idea. And I want to give you a short impression of the game. So when you sign up, I sent you also the link. This is how it looks like. Here you see actually San Francisco. When you say, it works very much like Monopoly. So I have the map of San Francisco, and this is just our staging server, because I'm not allowed to play on the real server because I have insider knowledge. No, none of our employees is allowed to do that. But so I can go now and I can zoom in. Zoom into the app. And when I zoom really deep in, I can see here I have a little game piece which roams in an arbitrary way through the city. And what I can do now, I can say, okay, I want to send this little game piece. So I have this little, scooter. This is my game piece. And I can say, you know what, I'm interested maybe in purchasing this little property here, right? It says, it's owned by a player called Chino, whatever it means. Right, and he sells it for 60,000 APEX. So, 1,000 APEX is $1. And what I can do first is I can send my little explorer there. I can send him there to go there. So I sent him here. And now I'm there and say, okay, you know what? I want to purchase this property. Click on it. And it says 60,000. I said buy, and I go on here and said, you really want to show that you want to buy it. Now I'm buying it, and it's minted now on the blockchain. And this is now the difference to old games. Me as the user, I become the true owner of that property. So Upland as a company cannot take that away from you. So to give you an example, when you're in Fortnite can always delete your account, take all the assets you have in Fortnite away from you because they are centralized. And this is the big difference of blockchain. Blockchain sits there and it's open and accessible for everyone. That means I cannot take, as a game operator, I cannot take that asset away from you again. Yeah. So I purchased now this property. You can see, okay, this is a nice house. Maybe someone of you lives there. So I just purchased that, and now I own this property. And now we've implemented lots of other game loops. So for instance, I can do a collection as it's now gamified, and very much like in Monopoly, where I have to collect 3 streets with the same color, right? In this case, it tells me, collect maybe here San Francisco, collect, own 3 properties in San Francisco. And I can go here and I can pick 3 properties which I'm owning and can add them to the collection. So this gives you short overview. There's a lot of more features in the app. You can travel by virtual train to Fresno or by virtual airplane to New York. So it's a lot of fun of doing things. But I want to dig too deep into that, right? So, but that's basically when I was very clear to the investors, what do you actually do? And say, okay, think monopoly, right? People can now buy, sell, trade properties, which are based on real world addresses, can do those property collections. Then we have treasure hunts in the game. We have live events where people have to do certain things. It's really, people just love doing that. And eventually we are going to offer that people can start building virtual properties, virtual buildings on top of their properties, develop those properties with a mansion, with a house and other things. So that is coming. So this is the first pillar of Upland. Then we have the second pillar, what is called earn. Then when we say make profits like in real life, and this is actually something probably very timely also in the COVID phases, is when we say we want to allow our users to import or create assets which they can then sell to other users. That means you can now go and maybe create a nursery, and then you create maybe virtual plants. It's not implemented yet, but it's coming next year. And then you can sell those plants to other players. Yeah, so that's one thing. Or you can just sell your property. You can flip your properties. You bought it for 10,000 Apex, which is $10, and sell it maybe for 20,000. Make some money on the markup here. Yeah? But we will also allow users to import, let's say, digital art from elsewhere into Upland. That's coming also next year, and then put it on their wall, and maybe trade that property and trade that piece of art with other players. Or maybe this is also blockchain. What we also want users to do, you tokenize, let's say, an old-timer car, a sports car like the Porsche or like Picasso drawing, and you own a token of that car, and you take that one piece of token, it's like a share on that with that car, and you put it into Upland, and now you can drive a virtual Porsche in Upland. So all these things are coming. And eventually, we want to really allow people to do business in Upland to make money, right? Or maybe you have a shop there, right? A virtual shop, or maybe your virtual cinema. You want to show movies to people, right? Maybe you're a stand-up comedian and want to invite people and participate in your show. You can all do that in Upland and eventually make money, like in real life. And I can explain it in a second how you're going to get actually to US dollars. And the third pillar which we have is connect or interact in the community. That's what I mentioned earlier is, and we have those social settings like a coffee shop, a virtual coffee shop where people can meet, can talk, where the community of interest, where they get together, universities, sports stadiums, right? What we currently see is that people like in San Francisco, we have a lot of people who don't even live in San Francisco, but they're developing their new virtual home in San Francisco, which is super interesting. They're putting together because they have some like-minded ideas. So this is really, really cool. And Upland is currently developing a huge community, what we call also Upland Contributor Network. So we have people now creating, when you Google Upland or go on YouTube, you find tons of videos. You even find a rap song which has created around Upland. You find podcasts and lots of interesting stuff. So this is also very important in every, and I would really say every future product, even the studio you want to start as a company, right? Or the app you build. Always think about your community, how you can, help your community to get engaged. Super, super important. Yeah. And that's where we say we are ready actually for mass adoption. And that's where we differentiate from all the other blockchain applications out there. So, and that's again to give the, why we're different. And we say, first of all, the acquisition, we can use performance marketing. That's Facebook marketing or other places, because most of the blockchain apps, they cannot do this. Can drive local campaigns. Right now it's a little bit difficult because of the pandemic, but we eventually want to do things, on site as well. When there's a big sports event, you can do stuff around Upland, right? And we have the community who drives their own content. The onboarding is super easy. It's just the email and password to sign up. We have iOS, Android app, which is also very unique. You don't need to know anything about Upland. And the experience is you can start Upland actually, and the link I've shared with you, you get actually $6, 6,000 Apex for free. You can start playing, you get dropped in Fresno. However, you have to sign in, you get a visa, and you need always at least you renew your visa once a week, otherwise you're losing your assets. But once you have more than 10,000 Apex or more than $10 at net worth, you're going to keep your assets forever. That's for us a way to onboard people who are not sure about spending, but who get slowly into it. And then we don't have transaction fees, and our UI is very much on par with others. What is new now is the payments. So you can either use in-app purchases, or on the web you can use credit card or PayPal to purchase Apex, our in-game currency, cryptocurrency, and with those Apex you are going to buy the properties or the digital assets. So this is our business model. Upland is in the business to sell Apex to players or to its citizens. Yeah. But what becomes now interesting is now we have a strategic partnership with another metaverse called Second Life, because there's has a lot of regulatory requirements. Now, as a player, you're allowed to sell your properties also for US dollars. As this is currently beta testing with 30 users. But the idea is you can sell your properties when you own it for US dollars, because when you purchase a property in Upland, you purchase it maybe for $10, you get actually earning a yield on Apex, so you're increasing the value of your property all the time. Or when you have a virtual piece of art in your property, you can go in the future and sell it for US dollars. That's how eventually you're going to extract monetary value. That's where it becomes interesting, because now you can be a small business owner. You can make money, and not also even, when you have a pandemic or something, you're not just, physical, but you can also do some other stuff where you can earn money and extend it to your own personal life. So really see Upland as a platform for lots of entrepreneurs creating virtual stores, where we're blurring the real world with the virtual world. Then, of course, helping your investors also to see, okay, where do they play? And what is important when you do a competitive overview, it's not that you compare it with maybe small other people who are using the same technology, like what I have here, Sandbox or Decentraland. I'm comparing myself more with someone like Minecraft or Roblox, right? Because that's our vision. We want to become large. And so the investor wants to know, okay, how big can this be? Right? Not that you say, hey, we're doing the same like this other blockchain startup. They say, oh, yeah, okay, but it's not proven, right? We said, no, we're going after the big ones, right? And that's also what you have to show to an investor, that this typical curve, how are you going to increase, right? And how are you going to scale it up, right? It's not if you just say, yeah, I have to invest into marketing, then hopefully people are coming. I think these days, my personal opinion, the days of traditional marketing is only one half of your customer acquisition strategy. You have to come up with new ways of getting to customers. That's very, very important. That's what we've chosen. For instance, we're going to work closely together with influencers, with content creators who bring audiences, but at the same time, they're able to bring us more money. So it's not just a pure performance marketing, it's influencer marketing, but also we want to do other things like where we integrate brands into the app, because all of a sudden, let's say, just grab an example, not that we're doing it, but let's say you can buy a virtual Tesla in Upland. All of a sudden, you get all the Tesla fanboys maybe into Upland, right? So that's just a concrete thing. It's how we see things evolving, right? But you need to see, okay, where are audiences or potential customers I can tap into? Do you have strategic partners you can, who are complementary to the things you're doing yourself? Right, and that's you have to be really smart about it. And you should spend at least 50% of your time thinking about that customer acquisition. Right, don't underestimate that. Right, product is important, but never forget that piece as well. Okay, and let's then you show the investors, okay, what have you achieved? So we basically go, we raised our money at the end of 2018. We did the open beta early this year. Launched new cities, doing this now with property development, fiat out. Fiat out means real money out, US dollar. And then starting global rollout next year. And we want to have actually developer platform. So that's a little bit detailed, but people want to know where you're spending the money on. Okay, I'm raising $50,000 now. You tell them, okay, I'm going to spend $20,000 on renting out a studio, $10,000 buying equipment, and then 10,000 or 20,000 on marketing or so, right? You have to tell investors what are you using your money for. Yeah. All right. So that's basically it. That was actually a real life pitch. I'm using here and there still, of course, with some more KPIs and numbers, but that's basically how it works. So I'm open now to more questions.
Yeah, Dr. Lueth, I have a question for you with this Upland. Of course, somewhere down the line, we learned that being an entrepreneur, one of the good qualities is to be paranoid. So I'm wondering, with the situation now, are you prepared with your with Upland against another Graham Clark practically cracking into your system?
You mean being hacked?
Yes. Are you familiar with Graham Clark?
No, but no, not really. Yeah.
I'll remind you, he is, I think he's still 17 now, but he pretty much was really good at playing the game Minecraft and was playing with people in different countries and was known for scamming his players into giving them money and not actually following through and selling them the items that he was supposedly selling to them. And he ended up taking his talents and getting into the Twitter accounts and getting into people's Bitcoin accounts. A lot of famous people. He got into Bill Gates, the former President Obama, a lot of actors and actresses and businessmen, and basically scammed them, saying that I think he was sending a message out to people saying that Twitter was going to match some charity thing and encouraged people to invest in this charity thing. And actually he was collecting the money, but he was finally found, and he's waiting trial to be tried as an adult right now. But he successfully got into Twitter's system, was posing as a Twitter employee, and basically got into people's Bitcoin accounts, sending them little messages saying, this is your Bitcoin account, please, log into your system and all this stuff. And he was able to get into them via their cell phones as well as their computers. So
yeah. Yeah, I mean, of course, we have security audits, right? That's when you're building a tech company, especially the things we're doing, dealing with real money, we have to be really careful about. And we've been attacked, to be honest. We know that, right? And people are trying to get and scam people and do things. Unfortunately, this is a sad reality of today's life, right? And I'm sure that this is not the only guy. I'm sure there's 100 more like him out there trying to do things, trying to scam people. Yeah, and then in the beginning, by the way, people thought also, when we came to the market, that people even thought that we are a scam. They thought we're just taking money and run away with it, right? Because you can never trust anyone. But that's for us the way we solved it. That we were very transparent, right? We do public ask me anything sessions. We talk to people in the community and so on. But yeah.
Videos alongside Alan Cuff, Carlos Boozer, and Lou Hancock. I'm Kelsey Riggs. Guys, we're talking the teams that we're most excited to see this year. What team?
Thomas, can you mute your mic?
I cannot hear you. Sorry.
I think
yeah. Go ahead.
All right. Okay.
I was gonna add a little bit more to that too, because Graham Clark, he also broke into the blockchain, which is how he was also able to get into a lot of this. So you're talking about how you can prove the authenticity of a lot of the objects that, or I guess product that you would buy in Upland. But again, you have somebody who's scamming people, and yet he can change that blockchain to show that, yeah, you're not the rightful owner, he is the rightful owner, or something like that. But I was
yeah, well, I don't want to go too deep in the technical things. So first of all, blockchains themselves have not been hacked, right? So it's more likely that stuff around it, that a wallet has been hacked or some users have been hacked because they haven't been careful in sharing clicking on some links, they shared passwords or whatever they did, right? So yeah, I can only recommend to anyone who's doing something of value in the internet, always use different passwords, use 2FA, two-factor authentication, all these kind of things, because I don't think that this will go away soon. Yeah, but that's all I can say to the security issue here.
And I'll ask one last question. Are you being approached by Hasbro?
No, not yet. Maybe it comes. We're a little bit larger, right? We were a little bit under the radar, but you can see the monocle. It's a little bit, yeah.
Hey, Dirk.
Yeah.
It's Caitlin again. I wanted to ask you, over your years of giving a lot of pitches, not necessarily having to do with Upland, but what's one of your favorite stories? And over those years of pitching, what are 3 key takeaways that you've learned when giving essentially your market pitch? Yeah.
That's a very good question. So first of all, I have a funny story when I came here. So personally, you should never underestimate people. It's so funny. When I got here in 2009, you cannot judge people the way they look, right? And
Sure.
when I came here, and I went to an event also where there was supposed to be a famous entrepreneur speaking who had a huge exit. So what happened is actually when you have to know one thing: when you're in Europe, when you go to the restroom area, right? You have actually people who are cleaning the restroom. Normally, that's very common there. You leave $1 or whatever, to support their work. So, and they sit there and they do stuff, exchanging the towels. And you have that less here in the US, but people actually sit there and you always tip them. That's in Europe. So I got here and, I was not really used to new, culture yet. And then I saw this guy, right, who, the way he was dressed was, really, it was a funny story. Actually, it was, was dressed not, let's say, very rich or so, right? He was handling the towels. And I said, oh God, I'm sure this is the guy who is cleaning, the bathroom here. I wanted to give him some, support him like in Europe I would do. But then I saw I really had just $100 bill or something really large as I need. So that's a lot. And so I sneaked out. Then I actually sat down in the audience later, and then he got actually moved up on stage, and then he was presented as the guy who just sold his company for $6 billion. So that was really funny. He would give me $1. So that's something. But it's happening, I think, only here in Silicon Valley, right?
Oh gosh, I'd be mortified.
Yeah.
Did he keep your money?
No. I looked at it. He looked at it when I pulled out my wallet. He looked at me, and I already felt there's something wrong. So anyway, so that was the story.
That's funny.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, and what are 3 of your key takeaways that you've learned over your years of, I would say, both pitching and coming from the investor's perspective as well? Yeah. What advice would you give to people who are pitching to you now? Yes.
Yeah. So the one general advice I want to give is also, never give up until it's over. That's
right.
Easy sentence. Probably heard that a lot of time, but I can give you a story. A friend of mine, he had, I think, 60 employees. He did not know, it was the end of the year. He said, okay, I can only make payroll one more time, in December, right? And then I have to lay off. I have to shut down my company. I don't know what I'm going to do, right? And so he paid the salaries. It's really a true story. And then he managed actually to convince also, again, friends and family to give him some money for January, February, and you won't believe it. I'm not lying. Then in March, he sold his company for $300 million, right? It's just, I could not believe it. I heard it because I knew, okay, this poor guy, he has a good product, he has customers, but he's just running out of cash, right? And he didn't find any new investors. And then he found a buyer. And he did obviously a good sales job, and I was able to sell because this company needed a patent which he had, and he sold it. It's not a made up story. It's really a true story, but it was really amazing. So that was for me also a sign of never give up, a really fight until the end.
For sure.
So that's very important. So coming back to the advice I want to give is do your homework and do your research about the people. So very often what annoys me really is when I get a pitch and I listen to a pitch and I see those people don't know who I am, what I'm looking for. That's really where I immediately, sometimes already after 10 minutes, sorry, but I'm not interested. Not that I'm getting unpolite, but it's just saying, oof, this is wasting my time, right? And that's what unfortunately lots of people do, right? You should not underestimate the preparation of work. The second advice I would give is to practice your pitch. Practice in front of your parents, because the best sometimes are your parents, because you have to make it easy for someone to understand, because you always have to know when you're dealing with your product, with your service, you know everything by heart what's about. But the person who hears this for the first time has no clue, right? And then you have to really make sure that the story is great, that you're using the right words when you pitch it. Come up with potential questions. Ask your friends what are the most critical questions someone could ask. So, but it's part of the preparation you should really have, yeah, as such. And then you can get lucky to one good story is. I mean, I was amazed when I came here to Silicon Valley, and when I also was raising some money, and actually I had a call with a famous football star out of the San Francisco Bay Area who was doing investments in, I did not know him because I have to admit I'm from Europe and we don't play American football, so I even didn't know who he was. Afterwards, I knew who he was. Everyone said, "Oh, he invested in your company." So, yeah. Anyway, so. And I had him on the phone. It was really funny, and I told him what I'm doing. He said, "Oh, cool, sounds good. Okay, what's your account number?" So I gave him my account number. Yeah, send me the paperwork. It was really funny. The next day, I had the money on the account, and I think he signed the contract 3 months later. Right?
Wow.
It was really immense.
You weren't scared of getting scammed? You said you didn't know who he was, and you just gave away your bank account number.
Yeah, no bank account number for where he could pay money to, right? Because he wanted to invest, right?
I see.
Of course, just before the call, I looked him up and I saw he had a VPN and all that stuff. Yeah, I knew that he was there. Right? I'm just saying it was not my idol when I was young or whatever, right? Like I would have a soccer player as an idol, not a football player, right? So, right? If I would have told that some US kid and said, "Oh, whoa," that's what I mean. So, but that's also, but what I want to convey with that story is investment is people invest in you, not necessarily so much in your idea. They invest in you and how trustworthy you are. If the chemistry is okay, so you should never underestimate that, right? Yes. You can be so convinced, but if you come across as arrogant, as superficial, no one is going to invest in you. They invest in early stage. They invest in you as a person. That's I think 80%, 90% of the reason why someone invests in you and not in the product, because nobody knows if the product is going to work out or not.
Right. Through product testing, I guess, and feedback. Oh, one more question that comes to mind is going off of that. I've been working on kind of my pitch, encouraged by my auntie, funny enough. And while you're at a big tech scale, you've built and scaled multiple companies. What would you suggest for somebody who's a small business owner trying to build a personal brand? Not necessarily go so large scale, but hone it in and start with the tiny community. All right, thank you.
Yeah, personal brand is like any brand you're trying to promote, right? First of all, define your value proposition. What makes you different from all the others?
Right.
Yeah? Define your target group. Who are your typical, let's say, user personas or whatever you do, and then use the right channels where you find the people who could be interested in you. Are they more on Instagram or on YouTube or elsewhere, or maybe in a local marketplace? Could also be, right, that you that you have a stand in a when you want to run a local, like the studio, right? Maybe you go to the farmers market each Sunday and have a video there about the stuff you do, and that's what I call growth hacking, right? In a certain sense, you build a brand, but also find new ways to find customers, and which are not the let's say completely polluted or full channels which are anyhow overpopulated with others, right? You always have to find a channel where you are unique and where there's not a lot of people, because that is a much cheaper way to acquire customers.
What I'm dealing with right now is I'm noticing that most of my engagement comes from Instagram and Facebook. I have a physical therapy and health science student community. I cater to, the audience that watches me is generally 25 to 34 years old. That's about 48% of my audience on Instagram. And it's about a 50-50 male to female ratio. What I'm struggling with currently, and 18 to 25 also, but they're about 33% of my audience. What I'm struggling with currently is defining that target market, because I know who watches me, but I don't know essentially kind of how to hone in a niche.
What I recommend to you, what you can do is reach out to those people who are following you, right, and do what is called a product discovery call, right? Prepare a couple of questions, and you will probably improve your questions after you talk to the first ones, right? Saying, I'm not here to sell you anything. I'm just trying to understand why you've followed me, what gets you excited about the things I do, and to find out more, because you always get the best insights by doing those kind of product discovery calls and improving your product. It's always, you need to go out and talk to people. Instead of using the inside out, your view on things, you always have to go to the outside in view, right? That it's okay, what do other things, how others do perceive you and your service.
What I've been receiving lately is a lot of people watch me because of my positive energy. So that's always really nice.
That's good.
Thank you, Caitlin, for your question.
Thank you.
Really very helpful, very insightful questions. So I'd like to also open the floor to other students who might have questions too.
Hi, my name is Puisan, and I have a question. So I'm also from Europe. And one of the things we tell European startups that come over here and they pitch for investors, it would be, you have to learn that there are cultural differences, right? But the other way around, what do you think that has helped you for being German and coming here and being successful here?
So, first of all, I think some of the cultural things you can learn, of course, by yourself, but also there's training. I don't want to hide that I took some training. Actually, I took training when I was still in Germany, how to interact with people, with Americans, right? To give you one concrete example, when you do a business meeting, Germans are very straight to the point, right? They say hello and then immediately talk about the topic. While over here, how are your kids? What are you doing for Thanksgiving, whatever, right? So, so that's those little nuances which are quite important, right? And you have to become also a very active observer of things. But thanks to YouTube and all these other channels, I think there's a lot of things you can learn by yourself to overcome that cultural hurdles. In terms of building up a network, it was also quite interesting what I've done when I came here, because as I said, right, in 2009, so in Germany, I did 2 exits, right? I had a name in Germany, right, and stuff. It was all good. I came here, nobody knew me, basically. So it's okay, what am I going to do now? How am I going to build up a network? And And I know I wanted to raise money. I wanted to build a company. So I needed to connect to investors, potential employees, potential partners, whatever. So what I did is, it's just a small tip, right? So of course now it's not possible, but what at that time when you still had, let's say, like discussions, podiums discussions or something, right? When you have 4 people sitting on the stage, and I did a small trick, when they were on stage, right? Usually those speakers arrived early and then they mingled with the audience or so. The problem is when you go after the session and then you're in line with maybe 50 people and they just won, right? What I did was really a successful tactic. I went to these people and said, "Hey, nice, I see you speaking here today." And okay, I was using my German, said, I would love to meet you. Here's the thing I'm doing. I will reach out to you. Remember, I was a German guy, right? That's what he remembered you. That was my value proposition at that moment, right? To distinguish from others. But I'm sure you find also something, right? But like this, actually, I had a very high response rate from those investors or partners. So yeah, I remember you from yesterday. Yeah, let's talk or let's have a coffee or whatever. So these are kind of tricks you have to apply to get into the culture here, or to get to build up your network.
That's great. I also have a question. Like when you start, you're a visionary, obviously first, and then you wanted to implement that vision. If there is any like certain areas or like application or like places that you felt that that's where you need to start. And the other question is that in terms of the investors, would you go to places where all investors gather? Is that like really the approach to reach for investors?
Yeah, so maybe start with the second part of the question is, I think there's a lot of startup events. Investors need deal flow. Do not forget that, right? If I'm, let's say, my profession is investor, right? Even though, they don't invest in everyone, but their job is also to find good deals, right? So they are always open to speak to you. That's important. So when you go to a startup, trade fair, startup event, whatever, right, is there, I would always try to get to talk to them and try, with a little trick I just explained, to get to them and to speak to them. Because each conversation, advances you in, defining your pitch and defining your product or whatever you have. Right. So, and also for me, it was new to mention that, right? I raised a lot of money in Germany and now here also in the US. But in the beginning, I had problems over here because the way to pitch is over here is so different than from Europe. Right, and now it's a little bit more equal, but at that time was different. Like in Germany, you would present 50 slides with each slides having 200 words on them, right? That's a style, European style. While over here, at 5 slides with 5 words altogether. I don't know, something like those slides. You know what I'm getting. What was the first part of the question? Sorry, no, getting.
About going from a visionary, with a vision into the implementation and finding like the right place for developing, your idea.
Oof, it's an abstract question. Of course, in the beginning, you have some idea or vision, but having an idea is easy, right? And everyone has ideas, but you've probably heard that many times. At the end of the day, you have to have some kind of an execution plan, and you have to really, go through everything and have touched every area. Who are you going to build the company with, right? What is the market? What is the financials? What is the potential business model? So the typical, ABC, what you do, and I assume Vivian and team, you're teaching that also, how to pitch and the decks, and I think that's pretty much. It's not rocket science. It just needs to apply it, and it's funny just to see how many people just don't do it. That's even though it's all out there, people still don't do it, and I don't know why. Even I do it. You see my pitch deck, right? And it's my 5th company, but I still have to go all the way back to the start and do it again. Yeah, so it's just the way it is.
So Dirk?
Yeah?
I have a question about finding the right co-founders. I know that earlier you mentioned about how it's good to have co-founders that have complementary skill sets, but at what point is the right time to bring in co-founders? How do you know when the right time is?
I would actually as soon as possible, right? Because it's always easier to go on a journey together than when you go on a journey alone. And again, it depends on the business. If you open up a fitness studio or something, right, probably it's okay when you do it by yourself. Yeah, but if you want to do a tech startup or something more, let's say, complex, then it's important to find someone who is, who's complementary. But what is also important, you find someone who's the same economic situation like you are, right? To give you one example. So first of all, maybe you're in the same stage of life, right? Maybe you both started a family, even though that's super hard to start a company at the same time, to be honest, right? But it should not be someone who is maybe, just retired and you're young, right? And then you get together. There's different of interests, right? In a certain way. Also, some people might be able, for them, they can afford to not have a salary for 2 years, right? And then, they're not driven, but you need to know, okay, I have now 6 months, I can work without salary, but then I need to earn something. So you have really drive to get there, right? That's also important that, even though skills complementary, but economic situation and life status situation should be very similar.
Why
Okay.
do you say a
Thank you so
2-year
much.
time frame for going off of no salary? Why do you give a 2-year?
That's hard to answer, to be honest, because it always depends on your personal situation. If you have a family to feed, right, then you don't have, do your math, right? And you have to also stop, right? You cannot say, oh, now I'm going to sell my car, now I'm going to sell my house, now I'm going to do whatever, right, just to get there. Of course, you can do that. And you all heard the story of, I think, Elon Musk, said, I sold everything, when Tesla was almost bankrupt, all the great stories. But it can be super stressful, right? That it's, but I cannot give you the right answer here, to be honest. Yeah.
I hear you. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other question from the group?
Yes. So one of my main questions is, being a Silicon Valley native myself, I've noticed like 90% of all startups fail due to like many reasons. Like, it's just that like happens because some companies are better than others. I'm just curious, like, since we will have competitors in our field, that's, I think, unavoidable. What do you think is the main difference between a good startup and a bad startup?
Maybe I sound like a robot now, but the idea is, the team, of course, right, which is important, just especially in the beginning. The market, and then of course the product, which is, but this is a very straightforward answer, but which is still true. But most people underestimate the product or the idea they have, that it's not differentiated enough. If it's just a Me Too product, and you have to be very honest with yourself, what you're creating there, is there already 50 others out there? Am I just the 51st one who's doing that? And there's even a book, it's called Blue Ocean Theory, I think, Blue Ocean, something. Maybe you also had it in class here, right? Where people say, you have to find your blue ocean versus a red ocean. Red ocean means you go into a pond where there's a lot of competitors and it's a bloodbath because you're fighting over market share, right? And then you're gaining 1.0 from this guy, but then the next one takes 0.5 from you again. And, that's a reason why it's called red ocean. Find a blue ocean, right? Where you're the only one sailing along and doing things. And one advice I can give you, we have to think also, what entrepreneurs typically do is that they combine things. That's also the difference between an inventor and an entrepreneur. An inventor, he comes up with a new vaccine for COVID-23 or whatever, right? So that's an inventor, right, in a certain way. But an entrepreneur usually is able to combine different things together and create something new out of it. That's what an entrepreneur, and then he can build a company out of that. That's very important, that you see, okay, I have one idea. I mean, we had it, I think, with the fitness studio and a coffee shop, right? I mean, this is not maybe best idea right now, it's a spontaneous thing, but maybe it makes sense, to have the best fitness studio with the best coffee shop combined or something. So I don't know whether, to combine things which are not straightforward, but where people, because then they understand, oh, there's a fitness studio and a coffee shop integrated. That's cool. I'm going to go there because then I don't have to drive another 5 miles to a coffee shop. These kind of things you have to really think through and come up with creative ideas. And very often those combination ideas are very cheap to do. Yeah, but they help you to differentiate in the market.
I see. Thank you so much.
Hey, Dirk. When you have a bunch of ideas, when you're going for a swim or you're going for a walk and a bunch of ideas come back to you, how do you filter through and sort through which you'll execute on? And yeah, how does that process come about for you?
I'm very old school. So, first of all, of course, you have your grand idea, which is the company, right? That's where, that's one thing, and then it lasts for 5 or 10 years. So that's one thing. But once you start a company, then you have all those micro ideas all the time. You take a shower, you swim, you go for a walk or so.
Right.
I personally do. I have a list of all my ideas, and then I write them down. I'm using an Evernote, just a tool, right? But just write them down what I had. Yeah, and then even sometimes I wake up at night. That is an entrepreneur's life, obviously. Right? You wake up at night and have an idea, just write it down, and then I come back sometimes and say, okay, does it make sense or not? And then and prioritize them in a certain sense also. But that's, but what I mean with that is, very often you have ideas and then you move on to the next thing and whatever, then you forget those things, write them down, and then, because that helps you to create this unique product or service you want to sell.
Thank you.